They laughed for almost 30 seconds straight. I counted, because counting was easier than sitting there and actually feeling it. My name is Jordan. I'm 29 now, but I was 22 the night it happened. My family's Thanksgiving dinner, 18 people, crammed around my Aunt Carol's dining table. The year I made the mistake of announcing, out loud, in front of everyone, that I was dropping out of my final semester of college to start a business. I'd just finished explaining the idea. A subscription meal prep service built for people managing chronic illnesses and specific dietary restrictions, something I'd started building in my dorm kitchen after watching my younger sister struggle for years to find prepared food that didn't trigger her Crohn's disease. I had a business plan. I had 2 small investors already lined up, former professors who believed in the concept. I had, by every measure that mattered to me, done my homework. My Uncle Rick laughed first. A short, sharp bark of a laugh that cut straight through the table's chatter. A meal prep business? Jordan, you can barely cook for yourself. What do you know about running a company? That's when the rest of the table joined in. Not cruelly, exactly. Not in the way you'd see in a movie villain moment. It was worse than that, in a way. It was the easy, familiar laughter of people who genuinely believed they were being reasonable. My cousin Derek, 3 years older, and an actual AMBA graduate working at a bank downtown, shook his head with a small, indulgent smile. Bro, 90% of food startups fail in the first 2 years. You're throwing away a degree for a Shark Tank pitch idea. My mother didn't laugh, but she didn't defend me either. She just gave me the look she always gave me when she thought I was about to embarrass the family, a tight, pleading expression that said, "Please, not tonight." My grandmother, 81 years old, and rarely one to hold back an opinion, delivered the line I still remember most clearly. "You'll be back in school by spring," she said, not unkindly, just with total certainty. "Once you realize the real world doesn't work like your little college projects." I sat there and let it happen. I smiled, said something dismissive like, "We'll see," and quietly finished my dinner while the conversation moved on to my cousin's upcoming wedding, as if the last 5 minutes hadn't happened at all. I remember driving home that night, gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands ached the next morning, replaying Uncle Rick's laugh, my grandmother's certainty, Derek's condescending statistic. For about 2 weeks after that dinner, they almost got to me. I lay awake more than one night, genuinely questioning whether I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I had $11,000 in savings, 2 verbal investor commitments that hadn't been formalized yet, and a business plan that existed mostly in a Google Doc and my own head. What got me through those 2 weeks was my sister, Emma. The one whose struggle with Crohn's disease had inspired the whole idea. She called me about 10 days after Thanksgiving, her voice quieter than usual. "Jordan," she said, "I know everyone laughed at dinner, but I need you to know something. I've spent 6 years feeling like nobody in the food industry thinks about people like me. If you actually build this, even if it's small, even if it only helps 100 people instead of 1,000,000, it still matters. Don't let Uncle Rick's laugh be the reason you don't try." I dropped out that January. I moved into a shared apartment with 2 roommates to cut costs, converted my share of the kitchen into a makeshift test kitchen, and spent the next 8 months doing everything myself. Recipe development, supplier relationships, a bare-bones website I taught myself just enough code to build. The company, which I eventually named Nourish Table, launched the following September, a full year after that dinner. Our first month, we had 41 paying subscribers. Modest, Not exactly the kind of number that silences a table full of relatives. But it was a start. And it was mine. I want to walk through what those 5 years actually looked like. Because the truth is, nothing about this happened overnight, and nothing about it felt inevitable while I was living through it. Year 1 was survival, plain and simple. 41 subscribers grew to about 300 by the end of that first year, mostly through word of mouth in a small Crohn's and colitis online support community Emma had pointed me toward. I packed every meal box myself, at my kitchen table, usually starting around 5 a.m. so I could switch to sales calls by 9. I paid myself nothing for the first 8 months. A supplier relationship fell apart 3 months in and forced me to rebuild our entire sourcing pipeline from scratch, burning through almost half our starting capital faster than I'd projected. There was a stretch that winter where I genuinely didn't know if the company would make it to spring. Year 2 was when I hired my first 2 employees, a part-time kitchen assistant and a college student handling customer service a few hours a week. Small, unglamorous hires, but they meant I could finally step back from packing every single box myself. We partnered with a regional gastroenterology clinic that year, offering their patients a referral discount, an idea Emma suggested almost offhandedly on a phone call. It was a modest deal, but it changed our growth curve. Subscriber numbers climbed to just under 2,000 by year's end. Year 3 brought our first real turning point, a corporate wellness contract with a mid-sized regional healthcare company worth just over $1 million annually that wanted to offer Nourish Table as an employee benefit for staff managing chronic conditions. It was the first time the business felt like it might genuinely be something bigger than a passion project I was keeping alive through sheer stubbornness. We moved out of my apartment kitchen into a small commercial facility that same year. Subscriber count crossed 11,000. Year 4 was expansion. 3 more regional healthcare partnerships, a proper operations team of 19 people, and a series of funding round of $2 million from a health tech venture fund that found us through a feature in a wellness magazine. We were operating in 4 states by the end of that year, still not profitable most months, still nervous about payroll more often than I let on to anyone outside the company. Year 5 is when the numbers finally caught up to 5 years of unglamorous, exhausting work. We closed a Series B round that valued the company at just under $30 million. Not because of some sudden breakthrough, but because 4 straight years of steady, disciplined growth had finally compounded into something venture investors could clearly project forward. We had 31 employees. We were in 400,000 households nationally. Chasset. I didn't advertise any of this to my family, not deliberately. I simply stopped bringing up work at family gatherings altogether, the way you learn to avoid a subject that once caused you pain. My mother knew, in a general sense, that the business was doing okay. I don't think anyone at that original Thanksgiving table had any real sense of what 5 years of year-over-year growth had actually added up to. The Thanksgiving dinner that changed everything happened almost exactly 5 years after the first one. Back at Aunt Carol's house, the same table, most of the same 18 people. I almost didn't go. We were in the middle of finalizing that Series B round, and I genuinely considered skipping the holiday to stay focused on due diligence calls. What actually made me go was a conversation with Emma the week before. Derek, she mentioned, had recently lost his job at the bank downtown, a round of layoffs following a merger, and had been unusually quiet at a family gathering I'd missed. I arrived at Aunt Carol's that year with something I hadn't fully articulated to myself, not a plan for revenge, but a quiet curiosity about what that table would look like now, 5 years later, with the numbers so different than anyone at it had once confidently predicted. Uncle Rick was the one who brought it up, almost immediately, before I'd fully taken my coat off. "Jordan, still doing the meal prep thing?" There was a familiar edge in his tone, though I noticed this time a flicker of uncertainty underneath it. The look of a man who'd heard second-hand rumors he wasn't entirely sure how to interpret. "Still doing it," I said. "It's grown a bit." "A bit?" my grandmother repeated. 86 now, sharp as ever, eyeing me over her glasses. "Your mother mentioned something about investors. Venture something." I laid it out plainly, without dramatics, because after 5 years of avoiding the subject at that table, dramatics felt unnecessary. 31 employees, 400,000 households, a funding round that valued the company at close to $30 million. The product, I explained, of 5 years of slow, unglamorous, occasionally terrifying work, not some overnight miracle. The table went quiet in a way that mirrored, almost exactly, the quiet that had followed my original announcement 5 years earlier. Except this silence had a completely different texture. Nobody laughed this time. My grandmother set down her fork slowly. 5 years, she said, half to herself, something shifting behind her eyes. Not quite an apology, but a recalibration of a certainty she'd voiced with total confidence half a decade earlier. Uncle Rick was the first to say something close to an actual acknowledgement. "I remember telling you that you couldn't cook for yourself," he said, an embarrassed laugh escaping him. Nothing like the sharp bark from 5 years earlier. Guess I should have asked what the business actually did before I said that. Derek stayed quiet through most of dinner, and it wasn't until I stepped outside for some air afterward that he followed me out and told me what had actually been going on in his own life. The bank merger layoffs had hit him 8 months earlier. He'd been quietly job searching ever since, watching his savings shrink in a way that clearly weighed on him more than he'd let on at the table. Apt to it. "I know this is probably weird to ask," he said, staring at the ground rather than at me. "But is Nourish Table hiring for anything in finance?" I told him the truth. "We do have an opening on our financial planning team. I'm not going to promise you anything, Derek. If you want it, you'd go through the same process as every other candidate. Interview with our KIFO case study. The whole thing. I can get your resume in front of the right person. That's it. That's all I can offer." He looked almost relieved by that answer, oddly enough, like he'd expected either a cold no or an uncomfortable handout, and hadn't considered a third option. 2 weeks later, our KIFO called me after Derek's first interview, mentioning, without any prompting from me, that he'd been one of the strongest candidates they'd seen for the role that quarter. Sharp technical grasp, good instincts under pressure in the case study. He went through 2 more rounds like everyone else. He got the job because the numbers on his own interview scorecard earned it, not because his last name matched mine. Mine. My grandmother pulled me aside before I left that Thanksgiving, gripping my arm with more strength than I expected from her 86 years. "I was wrong," she said simply. "I want you to know I know that. I'm proud of you, Jordan. I should have said that a long time ago, instead of what I actually said. I think about that first. Thanksgiving sometimes." The 30 seconds of laughter. I counted while sitting frozen in my chair, certain in that moment the whole table understood something about my future that I didn't. What I understand now is that they weren't wrong to be skeptical. Most food startups genuinely do fail. Most 22-year-olds dropping out of college genuinely Don't build companies worth $30 million. The odds really were close to what Derek quoted that night. It just happened, in my case, to be wrong about which side of those odds I'd land on. And it took 5 unglamorous years of proving it, one small milestone at a time, before anyone at that table had reason to believe otherwise. When people ask me now what I'd say to Derek, or to anyone who doubted me back then, I don't reach for anything dramatic. I just tell them what I told my key foe the day Derek's offer letter went out. At my company, I said, everyone earns their place. That's the only kind of ending that actually lasts. Even to it.